Hi everyone. Today we'll be reading chapter 1 from class 10th Cbse English book, which is A Letter to God. And as the name suggests, this chapter is all about faith. When we have faith in God, and God also in return send us some kind of messages or some kind of signs to us to make us realize his presence. So this chapter, A Letter to God, is also based on such faith that a young farmer had. And as a result of his faith, you can say that a miraculous thing happens. Now, let us read the chapter and understand what was there in precise. So, before starting the chapter, there are certain phrases which I want all of you to understand because when you will be reading the chapter, you'll find these phrases inside the chapter. So the meaning of these have to be understood. First is dotted with flowers. Dotted with flowers simply means that there were so many flowers. The entire land was, covered with flowers. There were so many flowers in that particular area. Draped in a curtain of rain. Again, draped means to cover. Suppose we have rainfall, and it is so huge, it is so impactful that the entire land gets covered up. So that means draped in a curtain of rain. Covered with salt. Now, salt here means snow, which we'll learn about in the chapter. There'll be some hailstorms. So this is not salt because salt and ice, they kind of resemble in the color of white. That is why ice here is compared to as salt. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. So the main character of this chapter is Lencho, a farmer. His soul was filled with sadness, means something has happened in the story because of which Lencho really feels sad. A plague of locusts would have left more than this. So, this is just a way of saying that the damage that was done to the field of this farmer, it was really, really way ahead than what any other disaster could have done. Many other things would have still left something for him, but there was certain incident which left nothing for him. Now, what was that incident? We'll read in the chapter. Lencho was an ox of a man. Ox of a man here is a idiom, which means that he was really hardworking. Stuck to his resolution simply means determined. Experiencing the contentment of a man who has done a good deed. Contentment means happiness. So here there is one character also who does a good work. So he feels that contentment that he has done something great in his life, he has done a good deed. Slightest surprise, that means no idea that there could be a surprise. Wrinkling of his bow, moving or twisting his bows, and bunch of crooks. Crooks here means simply somebody who's, not wise, somebody who's a little stupid. So we'll start with scene one. A plague of locusts would have left more. So if you can see in the picture, I've tried to, visualize it through a small animation or a diagram. You see that there is a hut and there is a man. There are three other people in the family. One is a woman and two other children. Now, this person standing here, you can consider him to be Lencho. He's a farmer, he has a field. Now, I have also drawn a table here. So, today, instead of reading the complete chapter, I'll tell you the summary of this chapter merely by a table. So, I'll just read down the lines and then I'll explain them one by one. So, the story starts like this, that the house in which Lencho and his family lives is located on the crest of a hill. Crest means on the top of a hill. So this family is based on the top of a hill, and naturally, as I have told you multiple times, Lencho is a farmer. Now, needless to say that how does a farmer earn his income? He does earn by his crops, by his field. So while one morning, he was on round in his field, he realized that his field needed downpour. That means from a long time, there was no rainfall. The crops were not growing, and they were in a condition that if there was no rain in the coming future, the crops would simply collapse. So he was just imagining in his mind, and more than imagining, I should say, he was wishing that if there is rainfall here, maybe probably my crops can sustain and I'll be able to feed my family. The older boys were working in the field, younger ones were playing. Now you can see the situation that the older boys, they were still working in the field, and the younger children of Lencho, they were playing in the field. They were just playing, and the wife was preparing supper. It started raining as Lencho had predicted. Now, to his surprise, as Lencho has predicted, or he had expected, he had wanted, whatever his wish was, it came true, and it was good rainfall. So Lencho and his family, they were really excited, especially Lencho, because at this time when he really wanted something to happen, God has granted his wish by showering rainfall. He compared the bigger raindrops to 10 cent pieces and little ones to 5. Now, this is a very beautiful line. Imagine when you get something unexpected, So the happiness to you is like you have got a lot of money. You can imagine the situation as suppose you wanted some money and you get it from an unknown source during the time of a crisis. Similarly, Lenju here, he did not want money. He wanted water, he wanted rain indirectly, which could have given him money. But here, when he sees those raindrops, he compares those bigger raindrops with 10 cent pieces. That means these are equivalent to 10 cent pieces, and the smaller ones are equivalent to 5 cent pieces. He was kind of sharing his happiness with his wife. See, look, these are the raindrops, they're going to help me. They're equivalent to money. The happiness of receiving this raindrops are none less than getting a money. Unfortunately, the rain was followed by a hailstorm. Now, up till now, it was fine that it was rain, but after the rain, what happened was a storm, which should not have taken place, because in heavy storm, what usually happens is the rainfall, it actually collapses the field, it actually destroys the land. Now, this was not what he wanted, but unfortunately, it could be his bad luck that he received the rainfall followed by a hailstorm. Not a leaf remained on trees. Now imagine the hailstorm has already shaken up all the leaves of the tree. Lencho was scared and disappointment. What else can we expect? Lencho wanted water so that his crops would grow. But instead of growing of the crops, there was no leaf. Forget about crop. All the trees, all the leaves, they were being vanished. And so will be the crops. Now what to do? He informed his family that no one could help them now. Now Lencho had understood that after such big disaster, I don't think that anybody can help us. Naturally, because the source of income was the land, the source of income were the crops, the field, and they are being devastated, they are being, vanished, they are being disappeared. So who else is going to help in such a crisis? Now, this is one point where Lencho had completely given up, and he was sure that he's going to end up his life in a very miserable state. And now he has to do something, because now nobody is going to help him, but he himself has to find out a solution, or maybe he has to himself find out some kind of help. Lencho kept thinking of what to do next. Naturally, in such a state, what do you expect anybody? Somebody would always think of it. Now, we'll conclude this story with a very short and precise way by scene two, which is no one dies of hunger. Lenjo was completely hopeless and only thought to seek help from God. So he was really hopeless. And he knew that except Almighty, except the powerful God, there is no one who could help him. So, in order to seek help, what he does is he wrote a letter that his family would die if he did not get 100 pesos. Now, pesos here is nothing but currency. So what he writes on a letter is he writes a letter to God, and he mentions that, dear God, I am going through such a state, a miserable condition where all my crops and fields are ruined. And if I don't get any kind of help from you, and that help has to be specific, that means it has to be 100 pesos. If I don't get 100 pesos, I am going to be dead. My family is not going to survive. If you can see from the picture, he's in a very traumatic state. He's into a very sad and depressive state, and he's writing a letter. Now you must be thinking and imagining, why would he do that? Like, can we really contact God? But you see, it was his faith. This is what I told you in the starting of the chapter, that there are some people who have immense faith in God, and they know that, seeking help from God may result in good consequences as expected by them. Now, after writing this letter, he wrote the receiver name as God. So even when he was going to post this letter, he mentioned the name of receiver as God. He was very particular that this letter has to be received by God. placed a stamp. Naturally, if you have ever been to post offices and if you have sent a letter, there is a stamp which has to be put on the letter, on the envelope, and dropped it into the mailbox. I don't know with what hope. We as readers can only imagine what he must have been going through, what his thinking must have been while writing that letter and sending it to the mailbox. He also put it in the mailbox in a hope that he will get a reply from the god. The letter was received by an employee who laughed and presented it to his boss. Now, naturally, there was one employee who went to the mailbox, collected all the letters, and while he was checking, he came across this letter. And when he saw the receiver's name, he really mocked Lencho in a way, and he really made fun of it and showed it to the head, to his boss. That, look, sir, what I found? I found a letter with the name, and the name is of God. Both of them laughed. Now, initially, the first reaction naturally would be to laugh, but soon understood his faith and commented what faith. But then, when they opened the letter and they read the complete thing, and then they realized that this man is really in trouble, and in trouble, he has not contacted anybody else but God. So they commented, what a faith this man has that he is writing a letter to God. So they planned to answer back the letter by offering him money, which was collected by other employees. So what they did, because 100 pesos was a big, big amount, they could not afford to give it. So they decided to give only 70 pesos. And 70 pieces also, they were collected from the various staff members of the post office. It was not only the boss, but all the employees who could afford to give little pesos. They made it up to 70 pesos and put it back into the envelope and asked the same employee who had actually taken out the letter to give it back to Lencho. Following Sunday, the letter was given to Lencho by postman. Now the postman very happily, we have read this phrase, experiencing the contentment of doing a good deed. Now this good deed was done by this particular man. This particular man who gave the envelope to Lencho, knowing that they have done a good deed. When he opened the letter, he was surprised to see that only 70 pesos had reached. Now, when Lencho saw that the request has been fulfilled, but he was not in shock because he knew that God would have answered my call or God would have really listened to my prayers, but he was little disappointed to see that instead of 100, there were only 70 pesos. Like the demand that he made and the return that he got did not match. Now, the poor lender, what he felt that maybe this person or the post office person or the boss or any other employee, they must have stolen the 30 pesos. So what he did, he again wrote a letter to request the pending amount and warned that the postman must have stolen. So again, he wrote a letter to God and complained to him that no doubt you have done a good deed, but I think people here on this earth, and particularly the postman and his employees, they have stolen my 30 pesos, and I request you to hand over the remaining 30 pesos to me. Now, see, this is a very, very beautiful story which represent faith in God. Lencho initially, when his field was struck by hailstorm and he saw that there is only destruction, he reached out to nobody but God. And you see, in a way, God also answered him back using an employee. Some kind of thing happened, and the letter was received by a postman, and he replied back. So now you can see that Lencho's faith did not go waste. So I've tried to explain this chapter using two tables in a very precise way. I hope it will be helpful when you study for your exams. For more chapter information, you can follow my channel and make sure that you subscribe and share it with other students as well. Thank you.